Ladies and gentlemen, the King is here, back with another banger, back on an episode of a Genshin Impact Theory video. Today, we're learning about witches today, okay? Everybody in the comments, hold on. I should have prepared. I should have prepared before this. Should have prepared.
Ashikai.
Ashikai. Everybody in the comments, it was over and 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 over again. Anytime I mention a theory, this guy pops up, or this person in particular, this name always pops up. And then I was scrolling through the videos, I was like, hey, witches, and the Hexadurgan, this is the last one. Any other name after this, I'm just gonna attempt. Any name after this, we're just gonna attempt.
Hexenzirkel.
Hexenzirkel? Damn. Hold on.
Hexenzirkel.
The Hexenzirkel. Okay, I thought I was close. I might have been close. Anyways, this is, I think, 8 months ago. This is pretty recent. Other than that, I'm looking at the recommended videos. The Secrets of the Gnosis isn't what you think. First look at the Hexenzirkel. This, that, and the third. Now, y'all know me. Y'all know I'm deep in the lore. I'm not reading all these books, okay? Please, thank you. But with the theory comes your evidence, and you get all your evidence from the game. So it's not like, yeah, I'm just watching this so he can spit the theory at me. This is also information for me, because in order to have a theory, you gotta have evidence to your to build up your claim. More than likely, they're gonna pull up past events, some of the recent events that came out. I mean, not the 8 months ago, as in the recent events that recent, you know. I believe 8 months ago was definitely before Natlan. Natlan was like 2 months ago. So yeah. But this is still all going to be relevant until we... until we get to the most recent event quest right before Natlan. Yeah, because that gave us some information about the three witches in particular, and maybe Alice. But that's like in quotations, and maybe Alice. I forget. They was just throwing letters every fucking where, and I don't remember. Anyways. Let's go ahead and get straight to it. Hold on, shout out to, I want to get you. We gonna be locked in for fucking true. So I gotta Ashikai. Me and you Ashikai, we finna be locked in, okay? But if y'all do have any other creators or any other theories y'all want me to watch, go ahead and put those in the comments, please, and thank you.
We don't put much thought into the movements of the Hexenzirkel. It's always Fatui this or Abyss order that, and maybe we'll throw a bone to Dainsleif or Celestia sometimes, but the Hexenzirkel, we kind of just ignore them. And the more I think about this, the weirder it feels to just keep ignoring them. After all, the members are all made up of some of the most powerful, enigmatic, and downright dangerous individuals that Teyvat has ever seen.
Damn!
There's an alchemist that synthesizes abyssal dragons, a jack of all trades who blows up ruins for fun, an astrologer with the same name as the second emanation of God.
Damn!
But who I really want to talk about is someone who I think is actually being grossly underestimated in her ability to manipulate the status quo.
I'm
talking about Nicole, this so-called guide who will never get lost. She has a rather interesting point of view on what fate is, how it works, and perhaps how it can be manipulated. And that might be the most dangerous ability in the entire covenant.
It might be!
So in this video, I'm going to show you how I actually reached this conclusion and what Nicole's possible real-world inspirations can tell us about not only her goals, but the origin of the Hexenzirkel itself. We're going to talk about the historical origin of witches, some philosophy, Greek mythology, Arthurian legend, and a biblical tale about a very special star. This sounds like a hodgepodge of topics, I know, but I promise each piece is really important and they'll all come together really nicely in the end. At least that's the goal. It's going to be a bit of a topsy-turvy journey to get there, though, so grab your pointy hat and a cauldron full of snacks because the show begins right now.
Mind you, I just want to pause right here to tell you I'm going to pause. This is like, I've been doing this more recently. When a bunch of information is thrown at me, I may pause and like read it back to y'all so y'all know I understand, so we both locked in. Just gonna let y'all know. But I like this. She lists out the... Okay.
That's where we're going to start for this video. Now, I want you to picture the average witch in your mind.
Okay.
Is she a wrinkly old woman with a pointed hat hunched over a steaming cauldron with a magic potion brewing inside?
Yeah.
Maybe throw in a black cat, a book of spells, and a broomstick for good measure?
Yeah.
Most of these symbols come from beer brewing.
Beer
for
brewing.
context, women from cultures around the world have been responsible for beer brewing for thousands of years.
Right.
But these witchy symbols specifically come from the women in Europe who brewed beer during the 13 to 1700s.
13 to 17.
Beer was basically drank in place of water, since the water that was available was pretty nasty.
Ooh.
Women would brew beer in large quantities to keep their family hydrated, but many women, especially those with smaller families, would find themselves with a lot of spare beer, so they would stick a broomstick over their door to let people know that fresh beer was available for purchase. Many women found this venture to be so profitable that they would run full-on taverns and came to be known as alewives.
Alewives.
The money these alewives earned gained them a level of independence that was not enjoyed by most women of the time. The image of these independent women would later be leveraged against them as the church began calling them witches. The brewing basins became cauldrons for potions.
What Mondstadt fit in this description too heavily? Just had Mondstadt really fit in this description right now. Every time she pull out a screenshot, it's Mondstadt. But hey,
the broomstick that drew in customers became a cursed vessel for transport.
Okay.
Recipe books became evil spell books, and even the pointed hats the women would wear so that they were more visible in a busy marketplace would be used to identify them as a witch.
God damn.
This obviously isn't the full story of how witches came to be. It's just the part that's relevant for this video.
Okay.
We can talk about the rest another time.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to alcohol, Mondstadt is the place to go, especially the Dawn Winery.
Right.
It should really just be called a brewery because they sell way more than just grape wine. They've got dandelion wine, which is made from dandelion petals. They make cider from apples, and they make absinthe from wormwood, anise, and fennel. When you think about a witch tossing herbs into her cauldron to whip up a spell, you can start to see how the practices of brewing alcohol and potions started to overlap.
Right.
Now, I admit, pointing to the alewife origin of the witches and the Dawn Winery is a tenuous connection at best, but this is where our first oddity comes in. At Alice's tea party, each witch has their own unique teacup.
Right.
And this one here belongs to Nicole.
Just a regular teacup,
seems like it. This was only a theory prior to Chapter 4, Act 5, but now we can say for certain that this set is hers, which makes this tea set's presence at the Dawn Winery rather intriguing.
Right.
Especially since this is the only other place this tea set ever appears, save for that one event where it was present in the waiting room of the Mondstadt Library.
Okay.
This suggests that Nicole may have regular contact with Diluc, and maybe a far more substantial connection as well.
Okay.
After all, his jacket bears the exact pattern as Nicole's tea set.
It goddamn does.
The same.
Damn.
A pretty odd detail to include if the two aren't connected at all.
Right.
And just like dominoes, once the first one falls down, the rest rapidly fall into place as well as a series of very fortunate coincidences.
Fortunate coincidence.
Diluc's father, Crepus, died from the strain placed on his body by a Fatui delusion when Diluc was 18.
Right.
This was followed by a few more unfortunate events that prompted
We are not rocking with the Knights. We are not. Get this badge off me. We are not a favor. We're not an honorary knight. We ain't nothing. Shout out to the Luke dad. We ain't nothing. Okay, get this badge off me. I'm not an honorary knight. Know that for sure. Never will be. We on the Luke side with this one. Okay. Not an honorary knight. Take this badge off me. If I could, I will, but it ain't because I can't. Genshin, give me the option.
Diluc to leave behind his pyro vision and travel to Snezhnaya in search of the truth about his father's death.
Oh, I gotta read that goddamn manga.
So effectively that the Harbingers themselves had to hunt him down.
Damn.
And he only escaped death with the help of a third-party observer who was a member of an underground intelligence network who claimed they had been watching him for quite some time and they had taken a liking to him.
What the hell?
I really doubt I'm the first to do this, but let me propose that this network is affiliated with Nicole.
Wouldn't be crazy.
Come on. We've got a third-party observer watching silently from the shadows that can guide those in helpless situations onwards to victory. That sounds exactly like Nicole.
It does.
In fact, Alice even suggests that Nicole does this thing quite often when she says,
"If one day you would be unfortunate enough to run into a truly dangerous situation, she may use her voice to guide the way forward."
I think that's what happened in...
This did not occur to me at the time, but this
Fontaine
line is such a direct reference to Nicole's namesake, Nike, the Greek goddess of victory. But more on that later. After joining the group, Diluc started using his tavern as part of the information network, which is very fitting because the best place to go when you need information in any RPG is
a tavern.
The tavern.
Yeah.
And fun fact, in New England folklore, witches were said to astral project their spirits into cellars of the townsfolk in order to drink their cider. This reminds me of how Nicole drinks her tea without actually being physically present.
Right.
And this also might be relevant to the name of Diluc's tavern itself.
Angel share.
Since the term refers to a portion of alcohol that is evaporated during the aging process.
Ooh.
It's said that this is the alcohol that is consumed by the angels, or I guess in this case, a witch. But possibly an angel too?
Yeah.
Like, Nicole is very likely not human, given the way that she detaches herself from humanity at large as a concept. And on top of this, she appears to be immune to Irminsul manipulation.
Ooh.
Or is at the very least aware of when the tree is manipulated.
Okay.
Thus far, this is a trait only a Descender has.
Ah,
but we
okay.
now know, thanks to the Nartzenkreutz's world quest, that a Descender only achieves that title when they have a will that rivals that of an entire world. Meaning
Ooh. Did that world quest, might have missed that. That is a bar.
Call the fire department.
A Descender only achieves that title.
when they have a
When they have a will that rivals an entire world. Huh. That too is the goal of Avalon comes from beyond one descended. The title belongs only to wills that can rival the entire world. So, damn. My mind just went into 1,000 places. That means there could be Descenders that align with the world that aren't called Descenders, but we just don't know it. That is fairly possible. Because you're only called a Descender if your will rivals the world. If you're like, I'm cool with the world and its laws and all that, you possibly have to be like 100% with it. It's possible that you could just be a Descender, but not called it because you're cool with the world. That is something to keep our mind on. That is something to keep in the thinker. Okay, cool beans.
Will that rivals that of an entire world.
That's a bar, though.
Meaning
I like
Nicole could still be of the same race or species as the Descender without having the title herself.
Right.
Kind of like the Traveler and their twin, right? Both of them are the same type of life form, but the only one that is a Descender is the Traveler. And since the twins originally had wings like sci-fi angels, then perhaps Nicole is similar.
Right.
Or, maybe she's just a Seelie. Those are based off of sea angels, right? And the goddess of flowers, who was also a Seelie, was chilling up there in Celestia with the primordial one before she got exiled.
Damn.
So that's pretty angel-like.
True.
Alternatively, Nicole could just be a cursed Conrian, like Grinddaughter. I am personally biased towards the Seelie theory, but we'll just have to wait and see what it ends up being. All that said, the coincidences don't stop there. Earlier, I mentioned that Nicole's name is derived from Nike, the name of the Greek goddess of victory.
Yeah.
Names like Nicole, Nicolo, Nicholas, and so on can be roughly translated to mean the people's champion or victory of the people. But the goddess Nike also existed as an aspect of the goddess of wisdom, Athena, also known as Athena Nike. Now, Alice says that Nicole has made the direction and order of the world her area of study, and that she guides people towards the truth when a change has occurred in the world. Like Nicole, Athena in her infinite wisdom guides humans and gods towards the truth.
Humans and gods?
Like where she guided Perseus in his efforts to slay Medusa, or when she guided Odysseus on his quest to take back his kingdom. But typically, Athena guides people from a distance, nudging them in the right direction through helpful hints and advice that might sound like prophecy, earning her titles like Protectress, Savior, Defender, Counselor, and She Who Urges You Forwards, or One Filled with Divine Influence, or She Who Brings Forth Necessary War, and many others. Some scholars even liken her to a probing mother. Athena is also known as the guardian god of cities, as well as concepts like democracy and freedom, so it would be very appropriate for Nicole to associate herself with Mondstadt as the city of freedom. And while she does not appear to be protecting them directly, I would argue that Diluc is doing it for her.
Bars.
See, Athena is also a bird goddess, but she favors the owl more than any other bird. Owls possess the ability to fly without making any noise to alert their prey, and they're only active at night. And Mondstadt has an owl named Diluc. It's obvious to see this from his constellation, but even in the manga, he wore an owl mask. Therefore, I suspect that Diluc is acting as a sort of avatar for Nicole, who references Athena and her owls. He's kind of functioning as an extension of her influence, doing whatever it takes to protect Mondstadt, even if that means defying fate itself.
Damn.
Now, Nicole wants to understand the world as it truly is. She seems to dismiss the idea that fate is an absolute thing, which should put her at odds with someone like Barbeleth.
Right.
At least if Mona's opinions reflect her master's, which they should. Now again, Nicole appears interested in subverting fate itself, and she suggests that fate is nothing more than the future as it is seen by the gods.
Ooh.
She even does the unthinkable by meddling with fate, nudging people in directions that she thinks will net the best result. She's realistic, critical, pragmatic, logical, and strategic in her efforts to lead her chosen individuals to her idea of victory. These are not only things that Athena Nike governs over, but it's also the basis for Machiavelli's most popular work of philosophy.
Machiavelli.
And this is where I go out on a limb and suggest that Nicole may also be a reference to Niccolo Machiavelli, because their points of view have some area of overlap.
Okay.
See, in Machiavelli's essay titled The Prince, he described the most realistic sort of leader that he believed could unify a nation most effectively.
Okay.
There is a lot of nuance in this essay that we don't have time for today. Links in the description to summaries and further reading. But the basic thesis boils down to this.
Okay.
A prince, which is what he calls his ideal leader, needs not to be truly moral. He only needs to appear to be moral. In fact, it is impossible for a good prince to be truly moral, because in order to act in the nation's best interest, they will have to act against those morals. Machiavelli reasons that a prince will encounter many enemies who are deemed evil, and that they must be willing to act evil in kind in order to protect their subjects. Something like mercy may be considered a virtue, but against one's enemies, mercy is a weakness.
That's a bar.
If a prince is feared but not hated, then he need not be loved by his people, and he will still retain their respect and his power.
Ooh.
Now, this idea of an almost deceptive prince, one that is actually immoral but appears to be moral, was an incredibly shocking thesis upon its release in 1532, because it was so different from what any other philosopher or political theorist was saying. Now, remember, Machiavelli wasn't necessarily writing about his own ideals or how he wanted the world to work.
He's just saying,
like some other philosophers. He was only writing down observations about what he knows has been the case in the past for people who have maintained stable power. This was the truth of acquiring and maintaining power, stripped from philosophical or moral ideas. This is how he observed the world work. And it's also why his work is so controversial. But I bring this up because I think there may be a sort of ideological divide between members of the Hexenzirkel. There are those who strive towards an ideal and try to make the world fit that idyllic image. And then there are those who wrestle with the harsh truths of reality and learn how to leverage these unsavory aspects in order to achieve their goals. I think Nicole falls into the second category. And that's why I think that Nicole may be a bit of a reference to Machiavelli. Athena was a goddess of necessary war, after all, a war to protect a nation. Think of this as a necessary evil, because shedding blood is never a moral thing to do. But remember, someone in power needs to be willing to commit immoral acts, and therefore cannot be a moral person, although they have to appear moral to others.
That is a bar.
Machiavelli, anyway. With this thought in mind, notice how the camera pans to Nicole's seat specifically when Alice says, "Even if the nations go to war or the sky falls down." Nicole is basically getting side-eyed when it comes to a nationwide war. And I think that would only happen if Alice actually believed that Nicole was capable of triggering something like that. I kind of agree with Alice in this case. And I also find it so interesting that Machiavelli was fixated on what a true prince or leader should be, and that Diluc is called the uncrowned king of Mondstadt for no reason that is ever expounded upon, at least not that I can remember. And this connection to royalty is made even more suspicious knowing that Nicole's last name, Wren, has etymological roots to words like reign, royal, or even little king if you want to read it like
little
Rayan.
King.
You combine all of this with my claim that Diluc might actually be acting as Nicole's avatar the way an owl would for Athena, and you might start to wonder if Nicole is trying to raise Diluc to be her ideal ruler for Mondstadt.
That would be so goddamn hard,
which is weirdly coincidental for some other mythological reasons. So I tossed around a theory a while ago when I was looking at Nichole's connections to Parsifal, that Mondstadt city might actually be a loose reference to Camelot.
Camelot?
Like the one from Arthurian legends. There is nothing to...
I only know Camelot from Fate, Fate Grand Order, Camelot the movie, with King Arthur and them, you know, servants and all that. That's where I know Camelot from.
Definitive in-game to prove this, but there are a lot of little things that just kind of leave me hanging. Like the infamous Parsifal is based on one of the Arthurian knights of the Round Table, Percival.
Right.
And it's likely that the Knights of Favonius themselves are referencing the Knights of the Round Table as well.
Right.
And then there's this one random kid named Arthur on the outskirts of town that's trying to pull a sword out of the ground.
Ooh.
Like, you know, how King Arthur was pulling the sword out of the stone.
Right,
And then there are the NPCs named Parsley, Sage, and Rosemary, who are likely references
Parsley,
to the
Sage,
lyrics
and
from
Rosemary.
Scarborough Fair, which is an old English ballad, which has nothing to do with the Arthurian legends, but it's a random British thing in a pretty German-influenced city.
Ah.
Counting it. Now, I know that Mondstadt is predominantly German, and the Arthurian legends are generally considered British. But when Genshin is involved, nations with Germanic roots are also the ones with references to Arthurian legends.
Yeah.
For example, the Conrian Swan Knights is a reference to Parsifal, an Arthurian epic that was written by a German poet.
Damn.
Then we have Amfortis, the regent of Conria, and that's the name of the Fisher King from the Legend of the Holy Grail, also related to the Arthurian legends. In fact, Fischl's name may be a reference to the Fisher King, but that could take a whole video to explain properly, so we're not going to do that right now. Now, I could stop here and suggest that D-Luke is supposed to be Arthur and Nicole is the Lady of the Lake who guides him to claim his rightful position as king, and maybe I could make a good case for that. but I'm not going to do that because what's more relevant than Arthur himself is the location of the legend. If my near-baseless assumption that Mondstadt is referencing Camelot is true, then nearby Mondstadt should be an area that references Glastonbury, or rather, Glastonbury Tor. Glastonbury Tor is a really tall hill in Glastonbury, England, upon which is the ruins of a really old tower, and as far as legends go, this place...
Don't we know one? Is that a really large hill? I don't think, not Dragon Spawn, but the other one. The one where we actually fought the dragon. I don't think, I mean, it is a ruin. I don't think it's that high up though, but it might be high up. I mean, it has high up places, but I don't think it's like that high up place. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong tower.
Place is pretty important because it's thought to be the location where Avalon used to be.
Avalon.
Now, Avalon was an island shrouded in mists, home to sorceresses, witches, fairies, and quote, it was where all the ladies who knew all the magic in the world lived.
Right.
Sounds like a perfect place for a bunch of witches like the Hexenzirkel to gather.
Bunch of witches.
And gather they do. In fact, a line from one of Mona's specialty dishes that she cooks up is explicitly a reference to Faust, a story where a dude sells his soul to the devil and the devil takes him to a party of witches.
What the hell?
Threw that party on a cliffside. And
damn!
Technically, witches throwing parties on cliffside isn't something that's limited to Faust. It's actually something that's pretty common in Germanic folklore when it comes to witches, but
they just do it on cliffsides?
Anyway, Glastonbury Tor is surrounded by marshland, and centuries ago, the Tor would have been an island completely surrounded by the water and fog of the lowlands, hence its association with the real location of Avalon. It also helps that apple orchards were plentiful in the region because the name Avalon means island of apples. Now, Mondstadt is a region flush with apple trees, and Cider Lake is likely named after the apple cider. Well, technically, the Chinese name is Fruit Wine Lake, implying it could be any fruit, but we're going to kind of ignore that because Avalon is also called the Island of Eternal Summer, and that place also exists in Genshin. It's also known as the Golden Apple Archipelago.
Yeah.
The place where we had the Summertime Odyssey event. Odyssey as in Odysseus, which, you know, had that whole thing where Athena guided him places.
Odysseus.
Now, this archipelago was presumably made by or claimed by Alice from the discarded land masses of Mondstadt, and then heavily modified with incredible machinery. But what most people seem to forget about this place is that it's also known as the Har Islands, which means foggy or misty islands. And if you were playing all the way back in version 1.6, you might remember that the islands were covered in an extremely dense fog that we had to clear by blowing up some mechanisms that are shaped like swords, which is potentially a reference to the Lady of the Lake, who offers swords from beneath the water. And I don't mean to jump around, I promise I have a point to this, but you know Star Snatch Cliff?
Yeah.
Well, based on an echoing conch and the Traveler's voice lines about Mondstadt's terrain and Klee's character story of all things, we know that Starsnatch Cliff used to have another big chunk of land attached to it.
Damn.
This chunk of land should be Menatius Island, which is upside down in version 1.6. But you can flip it right side up in version 2.8.
Ah.
And when you do, you'll discover that there's an astral observatory at the top of the island.
What the hell?
One that serves as the foundation for Mona's domain, which is called the Temple of the Star Latitudes.
Okay.
Is this relevant? Yes, actually, because the tower on Glastonbury Tor has been called the Temple of the Stars because some occultists hypothesize that the area was a landscape zodiac, which basically means it's like landmass that's a recreation of the celestial bodies on the Earth.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny because analysis of the Tor concluded that there was nothing actually there. So Genshin may be referencing the legend and its lack of presence by having the archaeological evidence just yeeted into the sea. You probably are wondering what apples and stars have to do with each other, and honestly, they don't have a whole lot on the surface until you realize that you can cut an apple sideways and come
then
face to face with a star.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, I immediately thought of Irminsul and previous theories that I've made about how the crystalline fruits of Irminsuls are the actual stars in the sky of Teyvat.
The sky is fake.
In the description if you want to learn more about that. I was also thinking about how Venti's favorite food is an apple, and how the tree of knowledge from the Garden of Eden is mostly depicted as an apple tree, and how alcohol itself is called a spirit, and how in the Drunkard's Tale, which is a whole story about Mondstadt, there's like a wolf and a Seelie that have a conversation, and the wolf says that wine is basically the same thing as the abyss, and you can see how deep this rabbit hole starts to go.
What the hell?
But the real question is, how does this all relate to Nicole?
Go ahead, lock me in.
On the one hand,
Put me
Alice
in a
says
conclusion.
that Nicole is like a prophetess, not that she actually is one. And on the other hand, we've got Barbelleth, who is teaching Mona how to read the future via the stars, which would make her a prophetess, right?
Yeah.
And that made me wonder if Nicole is something like an astronomer, while Barbelleth is more like an astrologer.
Okay.
One studies the stars to learn more about the nature of the universe, while the other studies the stars to predict the movements of fate. And while we haven't seen any direct evidence of Nicole's relationship to astronomy in-game yet, many people have noticed that Nicole's full name, Nicole Wren, might be a reference to Nicole Wren Lapote, an astronomer from France in the mid-1700s. Now, Nicole Wren, which is how I'm going to call her so we don't get her Nicole's confused, was nicknamed the Human Computer as a nod to her impressive mathematical prowess, but she was best known for her astronomical calculations, which allowed her to predict events like solar eclipses and the return of Halley's Comet. And that got me thinking. This entire game is littered with 4-pointed stars, and sometimes 8-pointed stars, but these stars almost always have equal sides. This makes sense if they're representing stationary stars. But there are instances where these star shapes have an elongated tail, like the star is moving and leaving a trail behind it. Like a comet, which is ironically called a broom star in Chinese astronomy. Maybe like a witch's broom. Now, the Traveler insists that they are a star, a living star, which should suggest that other descenders may have been stars as well. And
am I tripping? They know more than me. Am I tripping?
a living star, which should... Now, the Traveler insists that they are a star, a living star, which should suggest that other descenders may have been stars as well. And if the star descends, then it is moving. It's a shooting star, a comet, which means that there can be other star people, so to speak.
Right.
But if they didn't travel from afar, then perhaps they all have equal sides.
Right.
Like Deshret, or maybe Paimon.
King Deshret,
I mentioned Deshret not just because he has a star form in this cutscene,
right,
but also because this star has equal sides.
Right.
And Deshret references an Egyptian sun god.
Excuse me.
A sun is considered a stationary star,
yeah,
as opposed to planets, which also reflect light in the sky and can be called stars, you know, like how Venus is called the morning and evening star, but is definitely a planet.
Definitely.
But planets are called traveling stars because they move. That means that any planet that moves should have unequal sides when you draw them, because they'll leave a trail of light behind them.
Bars.
And since the travelers are likened to the morning and evening stars, which is Venus, a planet, then they definitely should have that elongated side.
Elongated.
Which really fits some of the more recent lore, because the Narcissus and Croyd's World Quest taught us that in order to be a descender, like officially, you have to have a will that rivals that of an entire world.
Rivals that of the entire world. A star, elongated star. He's moving. Desherate, even sides, not moving. Okay.
Now, if you are a being that is effectively representing an entire planet, then I feel like that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just a coincidental connection, I don't know. With that in mind, let me draw your attention to this name card here and to the phrase Universitas Magistrorum. This translates literally from Latin into Universal Magisters, or probably more accurately as Professor from the University.
Okay.
Magister may be another name for master, but it's master as in has a master's degree. Well, not really. It just refers to someone with authority to teach at a university, right? So it's kind of like a professor or someone with a master's degree in today's day and age. Universitas in this case probably means university here, instead of universe or world, which is also a literal interpretation, but this is just an assumption because of the way that the words are put together. However, the Chinese name for the Universitas Magistrorum is Shenmi Wan, which I'm probably saying incorrectly, but I'm trying. But this means deep secret courtyard, which is funny because at the base of Star Snatch Cliff, where the Hexenzirkel appear to have had an observatory, is the domain called Midsummer Night Courtyard, and its architecture is the same as the inside of Mona's domain, the Temple of the Stars. And the Summer Night Garden is a place associated with Fischl, who is likely referencing Amfortas, the Fisher King, protecting the Holy Grail in Arthurian legends. And don't forget, Amfortas Alberic became the regent of Conria after King Ermin couldn't rule anymore. He was literally a king. And did I mention that Avalon is also called the Isle of Eternal Summer? And these courtyards are specifically referring to types of gardens. Kind of like the Garden of Eden, where there would have been a tree of knowledge that is usually depicted as an apple tree, an Isle of Apples, also known as Avalon, the land where the fields do not require plowing as they tend themselves. It's considered an island that's basically a huge magical garden. Maybe a Garden of Eternal Summer.
A Garden of Eternal
Now, when writing this theory, I learned a few people had thought about the Universitas Magistrorum as an early version of the Hexenzirkel.
Right.
In my opinion, I think it was a normal university or research facility of some kind, but one for Conrians within which great minds like Rhindaughter and Nicole were some of the magisters. And since this courtyard university, as I'm going to call it, provided tracking information predicting the routes of the two stars caught by Tevat's gravity, that we're assuming are the twins, because what else is it gonna be? And Nicole is based on Nicole Wren, who did the same thing for Halley's Comet. I think Nicole was the one in charge of tracking the twins. Remember back to when Scaramouche said that the twins only arrived in Tevat because the heavens responded to the summoning? Well, what if this was a project being worked on by the university
in Conria by the witches?
With projects like Rhindaughter's Primordial Human Project.
Then
maybe after the Cataclysm, when everything was destroyed, several of the Magisters must have gathered together and formed or joined the Hexenzirkel. This would make the organization fairly young, actually, around 500 years-ish, give or take. But there's nothing with the timeline that stops this from being the case, as far as I'm aware, anyway. And the idea that Conria has a very powerful university with different departments feels so apropos, because Conria is said to be beneath Sumeru, which is famous for its academia and corresponding darshans. And this whole mirroring of the two nations gets more interesting because the comet that Nicole Wren tracked, Halley's Comet, is sometimes equated to the real-world explanation for the existence of the Star of Bethlehem. Of course, there are many theories for this, and I'm not about to debate which one is correct or if any of them are. Just know that this is one of the common explanations. Now, I'm pointing this bit out specifically because comets have tails, and the Star of Bethlehem is almost always depicted with a long tail.
A very long one.
And this shape perfectly fits the black star symbols plastered all over Conrian clothing and banners.
Okay.
Now, if you didn't know, the Star of Bethlehem was a mysterious star that appeared in the sky that prompted the wise men from the east to follow the star to Jerusalem in order to find the king of the Jews, which should be baby Jesus. But here's the thing. These wise men were actually officially called magi, and a magi is a Zoroastrian priest, and Sumeru is the nation that references Zoroastrianism the most. And what nation is below Sumeru? Well, it's Conria, and it's Magi-sters from the university. And fun fact, Zoroastrian Magi had a reputation for being incredibly skilled in astrology, as well as other forms of magic, which may or may not include alchemy. I'm not an expert on this. But from what I've read, there's a lot of other magical fields that seem to have some overlap. And I think this sounds a bit like our Hexenzirkel companions, and may explain why they had this observatory on Starsnatch Cliff. Perhaps this whole summoning ritual and tracking down the stars and following them was in order to find their next king. Like not just a king of a region, but maybe a king of the entire world. Or maybe if I put it in Machiavellian terms, a prince. But you know, if all of this is true, it might explain why there's actually a prince in the battle pass scene as like the second heir. It's saying like, this is your story. It might actually be referring to the fact that this is a prince theoretically and not an actual one, but who knows. Oh, but that reminds me. There is this one rather suspicious character who has a bunch of long-tailed stars in his design.
Who?
And yes, I am talking about Kaeya, the last hope of Conria.
Don't
you think it's odd that someone covered in the stars?
That's not deadass his like little title. The last hope of Conria? That'd be a bar.
Star of Bethlehem ended up at the Dawn Winery of all places? Well, it might not have been an accident. It is possible that Nicole actually had dealings with Crepus prior to her connection with Diluc, and that she was the one to suggest that he take Kaeya in himself rather than find a new home for him. She also may have been in contact with Kaeya's father and told him to send Conria to the winery specifically, assuring him that Kaeya would be watched over. And lest we forget that Kaeya is from the Alberic family. And in Conria, that family split into two factions at the very least. On the one hand, we have Clotar, who founded the Abyss Order, and on the other we have Amfortis, who stepped in as regent when King Ermin was no longer able to rule. Now, Nicole may have had plans for Kaeya. He may be Conria's last hope because he's a variable that can be used to subvert the hold of fate itself. A useful pawn indeed. Because in the original text, it actually does use the word pawn, as in chess pawn. So this might be literal. Kaeya even has his own bird-themed information network within the treasure hoarders. And did I mention that Kaeya's favorite season is summer? And if he's related to Amfortis Alberic, who was the regent in Conria, but also referencing the Fisher King from Arthurian legends, then you could liken him to a king. So when Kaeya says things like, if Fischl is a princess, then I must be a prince, he might not be joking.
At all.
And the more you think along these lines, the more you realize the level at which Nicole is actually operating. This should have been obvious since one of her colleagues is named after the second emanation of the Gnostic god, while another was being mentioned in the same breath as Surtology, and in Norse mythology, Surtur is the one being that kind of triggers Ragnarok. The War of the Gods at the end of the current cycle. Yeah, just kind of casually bringing on the end of the world here. But at a much higher level, I think Nicole may be laying the groundwork to ease the Traveler's ascension into power. After all, as a descender, the Traveler has what it takes to ascend to the seat of God, to seize the throne in the sky and claim it for their own, and to establish a new order, a new set of laws, and to guide to that into a new and brighter.
Because one descender came down like, fuck it, here's the world. Then another descender came down and said, no, this is my world now. He actually took the world over. And then as a descender, as long as you go against that, you can be like, hey, this is my world. As long as I defeat all the makes sense. Okay, appreciate.
Future. So maybe pay attention whenever you see these broom stars in Genshin.
Yeah.
You never know if they might mean something.
I got you.
Writing this theory made me really excited for when we finally get to meet these witches in person. I am going to collect each and every one of their morally gray playable selves if they become playable at all.
Hopefully.
But I'm just gonna let the credits roll while I share a few miscellaneous things that I couldn't fit into the rest of the series.
Okay.
So
cool
here goes. First off, I finally understand why the cats line are the only magical creatures unique to Mondstadt.
Oh, because witches and cats?
Cats are the familiars of witches.
Right,
and that
right.
makes Diona's relationship to Diluc even funnier since she kind of wants to just demolish his whole establishment.
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, I have a little bit of a Rorschach test for you.
Right.
So take a look at this section of the domain tablet.
Okay.
What do you see, if any?
If anything, okay, let me lock in. I'm seeing 4 eyes. It's not a star, not maybe a star, but it's even on both sides, but one piece is cracked, which is crazy because it's perfectly symmetrical. Besides this, not a star, not a star. Maybe I'm looking too hard for stars. I see this nigga's always holding a hawk. Holding an owl would be pretty, like, it would be crazy obvious if it was, but you know. Okay, I'm not seeing a star. Maybe I'm not looking hard enough? Okay.
Anything. Now, I used to see a cobra, but then someone, and please forgive me because this was years ago now and I no longer remember who it was, but someone pointed out that they saw an owl, and now I cannot unsee the darn thing.
Cool beans.
And the triquetra over its horns just reads like a moon to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that this is 100% definitely what this mural is of. I did say it's a Rorschach test. But like, I can't unsee it, and after all this Midsummer Courtyard and Athena stuff, I'm kind of just like, yeah, I'm stuck with the owl forever, I guess. Anyway,
now I can't unsee the owl now.
I hope you enjoyed this windy, twisty loop-de-loop of a theory analysis. That's gonna be a
theory
new
analysis?
word, I think. A special thank you to all of my channel members who support me in my poor decisions of diving right into the deep end of the lore pond, and of course, thanks to all of you for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Let me go ahead and like the video. Okay, so hold on. So we gotta lock in. N is leading people everywhere. Basically, the necessary war witch. That's what I'm gonna call her for now on. Necessary war witch. That's who she is. Okay, she's leading everybody everywhere. But specifically, which is so hard, could be Diluc, because she's basically matter of fact, before I even get into this, I'm not watching any other theory videos until I read the manga. I might read the manga Friday after the live stream that happens on Friday. There's a live stream that happens on Friday. I'm gonna watch that, and I might read the comments after that, or the manga after that. But Diluc has a third-party operator, which is more likely N, and he is more than likely going to become king. Well, he's already the untitled king of Mondstadt, which is crazy. My mind is like going back and forth. Which is, you know, owls. Because he is the night owl. Nigga is Batman. He's Owlman, okay? Anything? There was so much stuff I wanted to talk about during the video, but I was like, I need the information first. A descender ain't a descender unless you ain't fucking with the world. That was a bar, okay? Direct quote. That's exactly what she said. MC, I ain't even think about that, bro. Let me take these headphones off because I ain't listening to shit. I didn't even think about that. A descender came through. The world was worlding. Somebody's like, hey, I don't like this. And got into the world, boom, different world. Second descender like, hey, I don't like this. Boom. Every descender was like, him. MC come through. That's what I want to talk about. Fucking Kaeya. Kaeya had a war to witches, and they predicted MC and them. And one of them is studying seeing the future. So they knew this shit was gonna happen. So they like, we see 2 stars up there. MC said he a star. I don't even know. Like, if somebody could give me the source of when he said it, I ain't saying they wrong or nothing. I just ain't ever heard that. And if that's a bar, that's a bar. Cause that kind of switch up everything. But at the same time, MC say he a star. Same time, he say he traveling from world to world, which don't necessarily mean he lying about being a star or like the star means anything else. He could literally, like the energy from a star can condense and he can have a sister star. I feel like I've heard of like suns like revolving around each other or being like really close to each other, but a star condense that energy, you make MC. MC like, hey, I'm in this bitch. Let's just go from world to world with Sister Star. Now, MC a Descender, Sister 9. When I found out that I didn't make sense. Now it does. Only a Descender is somebody only who opposes the world's fucking order and law. So that makes sense. But that means that MC's sister is aligned with the world now, but trying to change the world and everything. Right? You feel me? You tagging along with me. Now it makes sense why MC's sister is there. You get it? Okay. Just making sure you understand, because I'm getting it. I'm hyped, okay? Kaeya getting flipped, Ragnarok happening, which is like, we out of here. Which is like, hey, 2 stars, MC's sister. Let's start plotting on MC, because we see in the future, MC's sister ain't rocking with us. I'm loving it. But I said I don't like to read the books. I'm perfectly fine with the manga. Now it seemed like with a lot of these theories, especially D-Luke, manga is a require, which is an easier read for me than like 15 pages of straight dialogue. Not gonna lie, I need them pictures. I'm a child, please and thank you. Whoa, did not know. Okay, that was hard. This was a perfectly executed, everything was ordered. There's a lot of mythological and like Greek and German and stuff that I wasn't really it didn't soak into me like it should, but it soaked in me like it's like okay, you take a sponge, you dip it in the tub, you take it out, you squeeze it. All the most information is that there's still water in the sponge. Most of that information still got out, but the explanation, like the backstories for like the Greeks and the gods and this, that, and the third was all the water that kind of drained out. But I did understand that N is basically the god, the necessary war god, leading everybody to this, that, and the other places. But mind you, I'm reading this. Where is it? Citations for further reads. Not this. Where is it? I'm gonna look back at the video about the. Oh wait, his name's Nicole, the prince. That's what I'm gonna read. I'm going to read this. It's gonna open up in a different. I'm going to read this in my own time because this should be a good read, a very good read that shall be used in the future. Will be getting read by me. Thank you. But, ooh, this shit is hard, okay? I ain't even, you just did something to my noggin. You just did something to my brain that I needed, okay? You might have let me back in with Genshin. No, man. You know, Genshin, me and Genshin, we've been on a smooth route. You know, when an update come out, I gotta play it. It is hard, but like the theorizing is a lot of shit that I have to go through. That I don't like. I can't. Y'all don't want to see me sit down and just read after read after read after read. World Quest be having all these names and words. It's difficult for me. I'm not even gonna cap. But this is making me want to dive back in. You're making me want to dive back in. So, ladies and gentlemen. I need the secret of the gnosis. We're gonna save that before watch for later. Which we're gonna save that because I feel like this is a video more specific about all the witches and what we know about all the witches. But that was a year ago. But I don't think like probably 3 events that came out about the witches, which may update my information a little bit more. But at the same time, you know, you feel me? Okay. Anyways, damn, this shit was hot. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and hit that subscribe button too. We locked in. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for you today. We gonna be I'm telling everybody on the stream, y'all better be tuning in for the lore videos, because me and chat be talking, and then me and chat both be confused, but we both be cooking up. Chat, if you next event come out, if you ain't locked in, we gotta lock in. We got me and my Genshin folk. We gotta lock into these theories, okay? I might make a playlist. I'm gonna make a playlist of all. Like the Genshin shits. So if you see me theorizing, you just know where I got it from, who I got it from, or who theorized it from it. But ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for you today. Till the next time for another Genshin theory, Genshin video, or manga. Like the video, so you like it. Subscribe, channel, get some more. For the best of my videos come out. Comment any other videos you might have. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitch. Keep it live all the time. Big KingRosé. Out of here.